Hello and good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to Tea House, and this is Belial. Liberté, equality, fraternity. Those are the words that helped spark the French Revolution, or at the very least, was a rallying cry to the peasants in France, the Third Estate, to establish a more equal society that was not beholden to the nobility or the king, which of course became one of the bloodiest revolutions in human history. But that withstanding, and of course withstanding the way they treated other places of the world who demanded the same of them. I digress. The individual in the picture in this video is the Imam of the Grand Mosque of Paris, Abdelkader Ben Gabrit, who was sentenced to the Dachau concentration camp in the Second World War for his work in the French resistance against the fascist occupation of France. He also had a large part in saving around 1,600 plus individuals, mostly of Jewish heritage, from the fascists, and keeping them safe within the mosque itself, and most of the time smuggling them into Africa and Palestine by giving them documents saying they were Muslims who were going on religious pilgrimage. And often the fascists would come to the mosque and he would say, "No, there are no Jews here," when asked, "There are only Muslims here." But, I digress. Certainly we live in interesting times, and this is just one of those videos where I share my own asked thoughts on given situations. We do find ourselves living in an era of paranoia that seems to be oozing from the pores of everyone that you see. There is a much energy in the air in this country, in my country, in the last few days and across the world. And we often fear what could happen and what may happen, or what is happening. Of course, there have been plenty of parts of the world that have gone through much worse, but the old idea it can happen here too seems to come to mind often. There's this part in this game, Wolfenstein Shadow of the New Colossus, where they're going through this city in New Mexico. Roswell, I believe, was the name of the city. And you're seeing the, quote, Liberation Day festivities, as the Nazis had won the Second World War in this game. And there are many people celebrating, and you can hear the crowd and their jubilations. But if you go down an alleyway, you will eventually find a man who is almost passed down drunk and lamenting about the reality of the situation that the American people have found themselves in. Interesting enough, in that game itself, there's also the part where one of the characters discusses how white America simply just will not resist the Nazis, simply because they're comfortable. Who runs the South in that alternate reality is the KKK or Ku Klux Klan, which there can be a whole discussion about what would have happened if the Second World War had gone a different way, and that's a whole other conversation. But this is more of a thought exercise. I believe that the majority of people, not that they are cowardly or that they are immoral. It's simply the fact that people look out for themselves and people close to them for the most part, and they just don't want to risk anything. That's why people don't go to protests very often. I mean, I might be the only person in my family who actually seemed to have any bit of a spine when it came to actually expressing their political beliefs and participating in social events. But it appears that many of us tend to live in maybe a separate reality from the one that exists. Certainly, it is not normal when we have people taken off the air for criticizing anyone for anything, really. Or it is not normal when newscasters in the same week call for the extermination of the undesirables, being the homeless population. I believe that America is a sick society that lacks empathy and has lost its way. I believe that we should continue to be active participants in our own culture. But it is an extremely scary time to be an American, which, that can be said that there are many places in the world that have it worse. But again, the quote, "It can happen here." I believe people in America have lived in a garden, almost Edenic-like existence. Not for everybody, of course. It was never for everybody, but the majority of America is ignorant of how bad the world really can get. And you often see individuals who live in this, quote, Edenic experience, maybe they have for generations, not understanding that they have it very good, not seeing their own privilege, per se. Like many people discussing ideas such as revolutions, second civil wars in the United States, and I always look at these people like they are, which is completely insane. Speaking to anybody who's been through things in this, like someone who has lived through chaos in other countries such as the Yugoslav War and Bosnian genocide, or even conflicts taking place in South America. Americans don't understand how bad things can get. And I believe that if the way things are going seems to be that we will soon find out indeed how bad things can get. It's certainly a scary time, but I believe that the best thing we can do is to simply continue to exist and participate in our cultures, in our society. But it is becoming very obvious that half of America hates the other half. It does not even come down to matters of religion, race, ethnicity. It really just comes down to we are the rats eating paradise. America seems to just be grasping at its last breaths, which is what many people say about us. I don't know where this is going. I feel that we are living in interesting times, which I do not enjoy living in interesting times. Assassination in the last week, newspapers and TV shows being taken off the air by the government and being threatened for saying very mild things about a member of the political establishment. I don't know, and I feel as if that things are going to get a lot worse. I often listen to people as they talk around town, and I don't mean to eavesdrop, it's not in my nature, but I tend to hear things when I'm being quiet and just reading my books. And there are people saying things like, "Oh, I admire the press secretary. I want to be the press secretary." I think that we've reached levels of cult of personality within the Make America Great movement, or the MAGA movement, the Red Hats, that is beyond the point of no return. And I've had conversations with my own family members who I thought had more consistent values on human life, but certainly that appears not to be the case. The cult always matters more than the family, and there's nothing outside the state, everything within the state, as Mussolini had said. I do believe that we're going to find out very quickly that indeed it can happen here, or it could all blow over. But certainly We live in interesting times, and I very much wish we did not. Although, I do want to end with this. When the pro-Palestine anti-genocide protesters were being beaten and arrested, nobody spoke up for them, and the liberal establishment did nothing to protect free speech. And now they appear to be reaping what they have sowed. America could have easily avoided this in some regard, but any society that only takes one election to get to barbarity and savagery is not a healthy society. But there is hope. There is always hope. And I believe that we should always participate in our society, whether you belong to any particular group that could be affected by a right-wing or authoritarian Christian nationalists. Christian nationalists, how ridiculous, as if they have anything to do with Christianity. Whether you belong to any group they despise or not does not matter. If you are, for example, someone who belongs to the dominant religiosity, if there was a state-enforced orthodoxy upon you, very quickly, if you are authentic in your beliefs, you will find yourself in the role of despised minority very quickly, which has happened in Iran and Nazi Germany. The state will never share your opinion on political, religious, or moral philosophy. If those who are on the Christian persuasion do not stand up for those who are not, they will find themselves in the role of despised minority in the future. And of those of us who belong to not the majority, I simply suggest to keep a head on a swivel and to watch your back in the upcoming days and weeks. Of course, I'm not trying to fearmonger. These are just videos where I discuss my opinions, which are unasked. But thank you for listening, if you still are. This has been Belial's Tea House, and all are always welcome in my tea house. Thank you.